Okay. Hello everyone. So this is the third part where we want to insert the rebar into the model. So because the the first two parts that we have been doing is the curve library and the tandem. All of them has included how to import the curve library. And in this part, we will be going straight forward to the Word file. See, we just right click and modify. See this, and similar to last time, just click the transparency, concrete mono, to two, and we can see the tendon here. All we need to do now is to include the rebar. Okay. So the way to do it is to click on Model and Rebar and click Draw. And then to, uh, to, to click to create the member, to create the rebar, you first have to select a target member first. So as you can see, in this select part, it's already selected. So you just select the part here. Okay, and after you select the part, you can see this is selected, so it's already done. The application is automatically move you to the select plane. And if you choose the select target member here, then you can select plane and the direction you want to click the direction in this part because you want to insert the rebar from this part to this part, not this part to this part. So, and then it automatically uh, show you the rebar that sorry, the section that the rebar will be included. Okay, so the first part is we want to insert the transverse rebar. Okay, and the way to do it, we just have to click on the property first and insert the, the data of the rebar. Okay, so you may want to click on this auto name because you don't want to click auto name. You want to just simply change the name. In this case, it's 5-1 with a grade of 400. And the specification, the barcode, uh, in this case, we will be using the SS, the KST3504, because this is because this rebar code is dependent on on the exactly on the exact project that you are handling. So in this case, this is the Korean project. So we will be following the Korean database. Okay, and this nominal diameter will be tied to the database in this part, but the bending radius you can change it based on your requirement. And the cover thickness we will change it to 40. So this part this is the thickness from the start plane. So uh, in this part, you want to change the cover thickness from the start plane to 126.5, but the end plane does not have any cover thickness from the end plane. Okay. We want also to click the on plane cover line center and from plane cover line center. Okay. And after that, we want to change the offset because we already have created the, the cover thickness of this part. That's why we don't need any offset this part. Just offset of 0. And the part length is depending on uh, the part itself. So this part will be depending on the section shape itself. So in this case, the part length will be 333.26. The end length will be 333.26 as well. So this is just like 1/3 from the start. To 1/3 of the one. And then we move on to the hook shape here. Again, this hook is depending because we want to create only the transverse rebars for the lower flange rebar. So this will be this part. So that means that we have hook at this point. And the way to do it is just to click on the draw again. And after that, we want to click on the select member edge. So in this case, for example, this is straight bar. Straight bar is just you just create your bar into the straight line. But if you click on select member edge, the rebar will follows the shape of your section. So for example, if you have a complicated section, maybe the section is like an I-shaped girder, but with a lot of stage. For example, like this, and then maybe have a lot of edge in here, uh, a lot of point. You can click on select member edge, and you can click select edge, and then you can click on here, click here again, and then click here, click here, 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 here. Okay. So, so the way to do it is just click and select, and then you cannot click on the green part. So the if the logo is turning green, you have to keep on clicking on the purple side and clicking on the red side. So this, and you can see the preview here. You cannot click on like this because it will intersect with the offset. You don't want the rebar to be outside the concrete, so you do it like this, again like this, and then like this, and then like this. Okay, waiting until the spot, 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 and inside, inside, inside. Okay. And then you're gonna make the blue plus. Okay. So the the important thing is that you want to see the preview first before clicking the exact rebar. Okay, so it's like because there is a preview like a blue glowing part like that, and you have to you have to assign the rebar. For example, like this. If you want to create the rebar like in here, you can just click like this, and you will see the rebars shape like this. And then moving on to the next part, which is abdominal rebar. So abdominal rebar will be this part. Okay, you want to click on draw again and click on transfer rebars property with the name of 2-1. Okay, with the D16, 15.9, 47.7, content copper thickness 40 millimeter with a form start plane of 110.5. Okay, and then for the part length, it will be 97.7, similar. The start length, the end length, the offset to 0. Nothing. Okay. Okay, so similar, we can create in transfer first with the package. And so first of all, we want to add the rebar from the bottom part, so this part, okay, to the abdominal left, go to the right, to the right flange, like this, and then back again in this abdominal, going through the bottom rebar. So you can see here, the bottom rebar is already connected. So the main point is that you don't click before the rebar is, as seen in the preview, is correct. Okay, moving on to the next part is the abdominal rebar 2. Okay, so we can just create the abdominal rebar number 2 with similar fashion in this specification. Copper thickness will be the copper thickness will be different because we want to get a different, because we want to see the different cover thickness. So we can change the on plane cover thickness to 40, 100, and 5 at 40, 100, and then 40. So, and also in the from start plane, it will be 168. Okay. And in terms of the part lane will be similar with no. Okay. Because the abdominal rebar will be interfering with the rebar that we have. Because the abdominal rebar will be in this part, because as you can see the cover thickness, some of them have 100 this, right? So it means that the second part that we click on the number edge, it will be 100. Because previous rebar, we have cover thickness of only 40 millimeter, right? So that means for how many click that we use, all of the thickness, all of the cover thickness will be 40. But in this case, we will have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So we will have 9 click that will have a different cover thickness stated in this part. Okay, so first thing first, we will hide this rebar. Okay, you can click on the object and you can click on the I logo, this part. Okay, and then you can click on the other Watch3 logo in here and click select member edge and select. Okay, and the first part is to click on the bottom part. Okay, bottom left, on the left side. Okay, so this is the first cover. So it will be 40 millimeter of thickness. Okay, and the second part will be 100. As you can see, the cover thickness is 100 millimeter. This is far bigger than the first click. Okay, second click. This is the third click. This is the fourth click. Okay, and the fifth click is this part. Okay, and then the second click. Sorry, the sixth click will be in this part. This will be 7. Keep in mind that the rebar should not be outside, so you have to be careful before you click. And this is the 8th click, and this is the 9th. Okay, and then you can just click on the P plus. Voila. This is the abdominal rebar 2. Okay, moving on, we will be creating another rebar. This is the upper flange rebar, so this will be in this part to fill the flange in the upper side. Okay, we can just click on the transverse rebars in here and then click on the name 4-1. Okay, and the cover thickness will be only 40 because all of them are the same with the form start line of 1 126.5, okay, with a part length of 335.29, and the hook type will be still we don't have any hook part, okay, and then we can click draw for the upper flange, okay. You can also click the river, okay, and you can start from the abdominal here, okay, because of course we don't have any limitation of the click because the cover thickness is similar. We'll just start here, here, there, here. This is for another rebar for the shear connection, the outside. This will to be similar to uh, on the flange part, but it will not be connected. Okay. Again, you can click on the transfer C bars and change the name 17, and then similar specification. The cover thickness will be 40 and 70 because we only have 2 clicks in each part. Okay. Because we will be creating the shear connection for the left flange and for the right flange. Okay. From start plane, and also for the offset, we can also change them to minus 200. Why we click offset of minus 200? Because we want to, so the the sequence that we will do the drawing is that the first one is to click this part, and the second one is to click the side wall of the flange here. What happens if you click on offset of 0 and 0, the flange, sorry, the rebar will be like this and this. So the rebar will stay inside the concrete. So if you change the offset of M length to minus 200, it means that after you click the first part, because the first part is the start length, start, and the second part is the end length. The 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 time that you click the second wall here, the rebar will have 200 millimeter outside the rebar. So you will see when we change the rebar. Okay. The transfer rebars, select member edge. Okay. And then maybe if you want to hide them, you can click on the hide. Okay. And you can click select member edge, and you can click this part and click on the second part. Okay. So you can see it overshoot 200 millimeter outside the something similar. This part, we just click on this part and then click on the other, and it will overshoot again, depending on your value that you add in the offset. Okay, moving on, because this one is the shear connection outside. Then after that, we want to create the shear connection inside. So the connection on the inside of the component. Okay. We want to change the name to 18. And the specification will be similar with the copper thickness of 370 millimeter. Okay. And from start plane to end plane will be end plane with the same, with the part length of uh, with the part length is none. Okay, because in this case we don't have any bending in terms of the rebar. So the rebar here, the inside rebar that we will be creating will be in this part. So it's still going to be offset. As you can see, we will insert minus 200 and minus 300 here, but there will be no bending. So it's only one part in here, one part. Okay. And there will be hook in this part because it's only one part. And in this case, we will have two different hook. So we want to click on the different start and hook. Okay, the first hook will be minus 90 degree, and we want to click custom so we can change the hook. We can click on the minus custom hook with a minus 90 degree with the angle of 180. Okay, and the radius and length, the length will be for the end hook, end point. Sorry, this is also similar. You can change to custom 90 degree and the hook type of custom with the angle of 180 degree with a radius of 37.7, the length of 100 millimeters. Okay, as you can see, you can click on the transfer blueprint again, select member, select on the edge. Okay, and then you can just click on the side wall of the flange. You can click on the not select member edge, as you know. Why? Because we only have one line, so we don't adhere with any shape because we only want to create a line in this part in the inside. So we can just click select line, okay, and then you can click on the side wall of the flange, okay. Click on the side wall here. It will automatically look like this, and then click OK. And then you want to click in the other line here, and click on. Okay. You may have a question regarding why the the mirror shear connection inside is in a different level. Okay, as you can see here, the you can see here the hook is on the outside of the sorry on the x direction of the model. Okay, and if you can see if you can see on the left hand side here, there are different spots. And how do we change that? As you can see in the 3D part, you see this one, although they have a similar setting, because this one is on the left and this one is on the right. Okay, that means that this part is um, opposite to each other. So if, for example, with the similar setting, the left side is facing you, the right side with a similar setting will be opposite you. The way to do it is just, if you want to edit the rebar, okay, you can just click on this rebar, and then you may notice that before you click the rebar, there's only one button in here, right? One icons. And if you click on the rebar, there will be two icons. So if you click on the rebar, this is the properties tab. You click, you can change all of the uh, all of the sections that you have. Okay, and if you want to, because the start point, as you can see here, the start point is the hook, and you want to change the hook in here to be in different direction. So you want to click on rotation angle of 90 degrees. And this is also similar to the shear connection on the inside. If you click on the shear connection on the inside, okay, and you click on the hook in the endpoint, you can change the hook on the endpoint to become no hook, okay, and then change the other shear connection inside to have also no hook, but the offset is opposite to each other. So if the left hand side is minus 200 and minus 300 for the start and end, the right hand side will be minus 300 and minus 2. And because for the right hand side, the offset is opposite to the left hand side, that's why if the left hand side has no hook in the endpoint, then the right hand side will have no hook at the start point. Okay, so you can see here. So the left hand side and the right hand side will have opposite reaction in terms of the offset. So as you can see, in terms of the offset here, if you have different value on the start and end length, you have to keep in mind, because this is not symmetrical, the left hand side, if the left hand side have minus 200 and minus 300 for the start and end, the right hand side will be the opposite of that value. So the right hand side will be minus 300 and minus 200 for the start and end. And also for the hook location, this the start point and the end point for both right hand side and the left hand side will be opposite. Okay. Okay. Now we draw the rebar again. We draw the rebar for rebar at the bottom of the lower flange. And this one is the longitudinal rebar. All of the transverse rebars is already created. Okay, we click on the property, then we unclick the auto name. Remember, after whenever you go outside of the drawing mode, so for example, if you want to edit the rebar, like the one that we have done before, when you click the draw again, you will have the auto name on. So remember to turn off the auto name. Okay. So you want to change the name to one for the logical rebar and change the specification to D13. Okay. And for the offset, we will have minus 376.5 with the end length of minus 3341.3. Okay. And we don't have any hook for both direction. And because it's the longitudinal rebar, that it means that we are required to change the value of the array. So this array is just for the shear reinforcement, the shear reinforcement of the longitudinal rebar. So the spacing in which you want to add the shear reinforcement. Okay, so because we have a lot of uh, a lot of plane, as you see in our curve library, we have like small segment for end sec, small segment for mid sec, and small segment for CB sec, and also the taper section. So the transition between the end section and the mid section, as you can see in the in this part. It means that the the spacing is not fixed. So if you for example have the spacing of 200 millimeter for all of the layout, you can click on the adjustable spacing. But if you have maybe small span of required rebar and maybe a large span of required rebar in the girder, you want to change it to user defined. So in this user defined, it means that you can change to whatever value that you want, whatever much of it. So in this case, we want to change it to 157.3, 190, 130, 190, 157.3. This means that it will have a five section of river segment. onto the drawing part. Okay, we may want to um, hide some of the rebar. So see here, we want to hide all of them, but the first part, the 5-1, so that we can align the bottom rebar. If the bottom rebar is matching with the existing rebar. Okay, so in this case, in the longitudinal rebar, we can click on the select transverse rebar because the longitudinal rebar is connected to the transverse rebars, so you can easily select transverse rebars here, and you can select. So you click on the longitudinal rebar, select transverse rebars, and then select. Okay, and then you can easily click here. Okay, and in the preview, you can see in the preview here, the rebar is outside the shear reinforcement of transverse rebars. That's why you want to click on this one, reverse direction. You can see the preview that now the longitudinal rebar is inside the transverse rebars, which is what we. Okay, moving on. Mm, also, you can see that the adjustable spacing, you can see uh, the longitudinal rebar has different spacing based on what we entered in the user defined. Okay. Okay. Moving on to the lower flange upper rebar. So it will be in this part. We want to create a longitudinal rebar in this part. Okay. We want to create a property with the name also one because all of the longitudinal rebar is on the bottom of the flange, and we want to change the spacing to 150 millimeter of offset in the start, so that means that it will have 150 millimeter spacing in this part with no hook. And for the array, we want to create a number of rebars. Number of rebars 2. So it means that we don't need to create any spacing, so we don't need to measure the length of this part because this is a diagonal. It will be hard. So the easy part is that you can just fill any number, maybe number 2, to be inserted in this area. It means that with the offset that we have created here, the the length will be automatically divided by 2, so that sorry, by 3, so that we will have 2 rebars in here. Okay, so on to drawing the rebar. Okay, and in the rebar, this is also similar. Select transverse rebars, and then we click on the transverse rebars here. Okay, click it with blue, and then we take select transverse rebars in here again. Okay, and again, because this one you can see, as I said before, if you click on the left hand side, you can see that the 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 offset is on the right hand side, right? You can see that the left hand side start point is in the left, but in the right, the start point is also in the left. So if you want to make the rebars uh, symmetrical, you can click on the reverse start point. You can see that the rebar in the right hand side and the left hand side is symmetrical to each other. The rebar. Okay, moving on, we want to create the longitudinal rebar for abdominal. So it means this part, this work area. Okay, we can create we can add property with similar name with the offset of minus 4,488 with the end length of minus 4,404.8 with no spacing in the start and the end with no hook. And for the array, we will choose the user defined, but it will be only 6 at 200 millimeters. Um, we want to also delete all of the rebars, so that delete all of the longitudinal rebars, so that we can easily see the drawing method. And because, as I said before, because we want to select the rebar on the website, that means that we don't need this, but we only need the rebar tree. Okay. 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 So for the longitudinal rebar, you can click on the longitudinal rebar, select transfer bars, select, and then click on the web. Okay. Again, to select all of them, enter, and then click this one, and then click on the rebar start point. Don't forget. Because as you can see, if you don't click this rebar start point, you will add another rebar in here and decrease one of the rebar in the right hand side. So now for the upper flange rebar, we want to create the offset of minus 3,376.5 and the end offset of 3,341.3 with no spacing and no hook, and the array of user defined with 2 at 165, 64, and sorry, 64.6, and 2 at 165 as well. Okay. Because this is upper flange, so as you know, we will be deleting some of the member here and just showing the number 4, 1. Okay. Okay, we can click on draw, go to the rebar, select, and select this part. Then we get to quick reverse stop point, and then this part. Okay. And then we go for the rebar under the upper flange. So this part, this will be similar. We can just make the offset similar. Yeah, no hook, and this the arrangement to be pattern spacing of 175. Like this part. And remember to click the reverse stop point. Okay. And for the other, remember to not click reverse stop point. Now, after you have created all of them, you can uh, right click and show all. Right click and show all. And you can see that the rebar here has the as the rebar, but we have not yet give the array. Okay, you can see here there's a rebar and there's an anchorage. Okay, if you want to see it a little bit, okay, you can click on the height selected, and you can see the rebar and the tendon here. The rebar is only in this part, and the next part is to array those rebar to the whole model. To array is simple. You just you just it 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 basically just to copy all of the information of the rebar here to the all of the model. To do that, it's simply just with the rebar, and when we do the drawing rebar, you can click on the draw rebar, draw here, and when you want to array, you can click on array. Okay, and we want to click on array along path because we already have a path, and we want to copy all of the rebar to the path itself. Okay, as you can see here, this is the rebar, and the main part. So okay, okay. So we want to select. We want to array some of the rebar, but not all, for a particular section. So in this case, we want to array this rebar, because this rebar is a one unity, one unit. So you can click on the shift and you can click here, and you can click rebar and you can click control and click. It means that it has three selected, so the logical rebar and transfer rebars, and then you can select array main target member. You want to select this member and select plane. The plane is this part, and select edge. The edge will be will be this part. So you have to click the whole member, the the whole layout. So you have to click like this. So you cannot click the one unity like this. So you have to click all of them. The the green value here. And then you can click on the property, and you can click on the user define, and you can add the for the rebar tree. This is the rebar tree. You can click 37 at 0.4028 from 0.2222 from 37 at 0.4028. This is for rebar tree. Yeah. Okay, and after that, you can just click rebar. As you can see here, the rebar is connected to all of the sections, and the logic are also connected to all of the sections of the layout. Okay, and moving on, we want to array the other rebar. We want to array the rebar number uh, rebar number 4-1. Okay. We want to select the rebar of the upper rebar here. Okay. So if you have a difficulty, for example, if you have a difficulty to select maybe this one, then select just bottom part. You can also delete, sorry, hit some of the toolbar, because we want to array number 5, 4, 17, and 18. You can just type the number 3 and number 2. It will be easier, but it will take a longer time. But it is depend it depends on what you need. You can select array main target member. So similar to last one, and select plane and select edge. Then property, you can enter 5 at 0.3055 from 37 and 0.4028 from 0.2022 comma 37 and 0.4028 comma 5 and 0.305. So you can see it arrayed beautifully this part. And for the last one, it's the rebar 2-1. Again, this will be easier if you just delete all of this and you just select rebar 2-1, and then you select rebar of 2-1, this part, and let's just go with the similar way. Just select array member, select plane, just select edge. Oops. Okay. For the property, this is also similar. You just change it to 4 and 0.2055, 30.636, 4 and 0.30655. Okay. Okay. So this, as you can see, this is the rebar 2-1, and it is successfully arrayed to the other. Okay, that concludes our tutorial regarding the creating the rebar. If there's any question, you can direct it to me in the email on support@mitasuser.com.tw, and I will see you in the next class. Thank you.